Today we're going to talk about lighting. We'll start with interior lighting. The name of the most commonly used lighting philosophy is three-point lighting. It's called three-point lighting because it uses three lights. Not a lot of creativity going on in the name here. Your first light is your key light. The key light is the main source of illumination. It goes to one side of the camera. It honestly doesn't matter which side. You can see I've got it on the right here. If you look in a textbook or if you look on some sort of web page or whatever, they will tell you that the key light should be 45 degrees to one side of your talent and elevated 45 degrees above them. Okay, that's a good place to start, but don't get too hung up on measuring degrees and angles and such. The key light goes to one side, and it's where your main light is. That's really all that matters. The fill light goes on the opposite side of the camera from the key light, and its job is to fill in the shadows that were caused by the key light. So the fill light is not going to be as bright as the key light. It'll still be off to one side, and it'll still be elevated above the talent, but in my experience, it tends to be closer to the camera than the key light is. The backlight helps separate the talent from the background. It puts a rim light around the hair and the shoulders and just helps them stand out a little bit. So here's Buzz with only the key light on. And you can see that this might be the kind of lighting we want for some shot, maybe for an action sequence or for something where he's struggling with an internal turmoil, but it's not really good lighting. There's a lot of shadows on one side of his face, one side of his body. Here is just the fill light. Now you can see it's a little bit softer, it's a little bit dimmer than the key light was, but by itself, still, this is not really good lighting. Here it is with just the backlight. This might be an interesting shot, again, for a hero reveal or something like that. Now here we have them all three working together. This shot still needs a little something, so I'm actually going to add a fourth light on the background, and we're going to call this the background light. It makes for a pretty good silhouette, doesn't it? And now here we see the entirety of the lighting package with our key light, fill light, backlight, and background light all doing their job. Here's the schematic for that three-point lighting plus background light. And here's a behind-the-scenes shot. You can see the key light, the fill light, and the backlight, and the background light is hidden behind the table sitting on the ground, but you can see where it would be. You can sort of cheat if you want to think of it that way. There are shortcuts you can take. You don't necessarily need to have both a key light and a fill light, for example. What I've done in this shot is I've set up just the key light, and then I've used a white piece of cardboard as a reflector to bounce the key light back from the other side, becoming the fill light. So rather than having two lighting instruments, the key and the fill, I've got one lighting instrument and a reflector doing the same job. This is a very useful technique when you're outdoors. Your key light is almost always going to be the sun if you're shooting in the daylight. Having a reflector so that you can use the sunlight as a fill as well is a very easy thing to do and very commonly done. Clearly, to be able to get the look you're going for, you need to have control over your lights. For each lighting instrument, you need to be able to control how bright it is, how direct or how soft it is, and what color it is. Brightness can be controlled several ways. One of the most obvious things to do is simply to change the distance between your light and your subject. Moving the light farther away means it will become effectively dimmer. Moving the light closer means it will become effectively brighter. Some lights, like this LED unit, have a dimmer built in. Some lights, like this little guy, have a focus knob, so you can change how intensely the light is focused on the subject. And just like with cameras, we can put filters over our lights. Here's a neutral density filter. How directional the light is, how hard or soft it is, can make a big difference as well. There are several ways that you can soften a light. Adding a diffusion gel to it works. Here on this LED unit, the diffusion gel is a hard piece of plastic that slips into it. Here on this Lowell, you can see that the diffusion is actually a piece of gel that goes in a gel holder in front of the light. You can bounce your light off of a reflector. Umbrellas are commonly used for this, but any sort of reflective surface can work. A piece of white cardboard, a white painted wall, the acoustic tile of a ceiling, anything that will reflect the light back will help to soften it quite a bit. And again, if your light has the capability of focus control, that will help with the hardness or softness of it. Changing the color can be done a couple of ways. The most common thing in recent history is to work with gels. Here you see me putting a blue color correction gel over the light. This actually changes the light from 3200K to 5600K so I could balance it for the sun. The background light that I used in the overall image also has a purple gel on it. This is simply artistic color. Some newer LED lights, like this model, allow you to change the color temperature. So you can see that I can run it from 3200 up to 5600 and back down again. Lighting is as much art as it is science. There's definitely science. You need to get the exposure correct. You need to have a range from your darkness to brightness that fits within the camera's exposure range so that all the detail gets captured. But the art of it is in creating a look, creating a feel, right? Is this a scene where the hero is triumphant? Is this a scene where the villain is beaten down? What's the mood? What's the effect you're going for? What do we need to see as an audience, and what needs to be mysterious? The best thing you can do with lighting is just play with it. If you go online, if you look at resources, textbooks, whatever, you'll find some formulas for doing certain things, like the formula for three-point lighting. But at the end of the day, what matters is, does it look good when you put your eye to the viewfinder, right? So play around with it. It doesn't matter if your key light is 30 degrees or 45 degrees off center. It doesn't matter if your fill light is elevated 45 degrees or 60 degrees. It doesn't matter what color your background light is. What matters is, does it look the way you want it to look?